Nathaniel Bennett stood before the bathroom mirror in his Phoenix penthouse, barely recognizing the stranger staring back. Gone was the polished CEO of Bennett Luxury Brands, with his tailored suits and meticulously trimmed beard. In their place was Jack Riley, a down-on-his-luck warehouse worker with an unkempt beard that added a decade to his face, greasy hair stuffed under a frayed baseball cap, and thrift store clothes, a faded t-shirt and worn jeans that carried the faint musty scent of their previous owner. He adjusted the fake glasses perched on his nose, their scratched lenses blurring his vision just enough to complete the transformation. "Who are you trying to fool?" he muttered to his reflection, the question hanging heavy in the air. It wasn't just rhetorical. For 15 years, Nate had built an empire worth billions, but now something was rotting at its core, and he needed to become invisible to uncover it. The sleek marble bathroom, with its gold fixtures and panoramic city views, felt like a relic of another life. Nate's fingers tightened around the sink's edge as he recalled the anonymous emails that had haunted him for 3 months. They arrived in the dead of night, cryptic and accusing, from supposed employees at his main distribution warehouse. In Phoenix, corruption, theft, workers treated like machines. The words burned in his memory, each one a crack in the legacy he'd poured his life into. His board of directors had pushed for corporate investigators, their polished reports, and predictable findings. But Nate knew better. He'd seen enough exposes to understand that official audits only buried problems deeper, glossing over the truth with bureaucratic veneer. If he wanted answers, he had to see the warehouse through the eyes of its workers. He had to become Jack Riley, a nobody with a forged resume and a desperate need for a paycheck. The drive to the warehouse that morning was surreal. Instead of his Tesla's silent hum, Nate gripped the wheel of a beat-up 2008 Ford Focus, its engine rattling as he navigated Phoenix's industrial sprawl. The warehouse loomed ahead, a massive gray fortress emblazoned with the Bennett Luxury Brands logo, a symbol of his success now tinged with dread. He'd visited this facility countless times, always through the executive entrance, greeted with handshakes and deference. Today, he joined the stream of workers trudging through the employee entrance, their shoulders hunched, coffee cups clutched. Like lifelines. The air was thick with the scent of diesel and dust, the morning sun casting harsh shadows across the cracked asphalt. Nate kept his head low, his cap shielding his eyes, but his heart raced. He was no longer Nathaniel Bennett, billionaire CEO. He was Jack Riley. And the role felt more dangerous than he'd imagined. A sharp voice cut through the chatter. "Jack Riley, right?" Becky Foster, the HR coordinator, approached with a clipboard, her badge glinting under the fluorescent lights. Her smile was perfunctory, her eyes scanning him with a scrutiny that made his pulse spike. "Follow me. Orientation starts in 5, and Derek doesn't like latecomers." Nate nodded, his throat dry, and trailed her through the warehouse's cavernous interior. Towering shelves stretched to the ceiling, stacked with boxes of luxury watches, handbags, and jewelry products that define his brand's prestige. Forklifts buzzed through the aisles, their operators weaving dangerously close to workers without safety vests. Nate's chest tightened. He'd personally approved a $1 million budget for safety equipment last year. Where had that money gone? The first red flag was immediate. No safety barriers surrounded the high-stack storage areas, a clear violation of company policy. Workers darted between moving forklifts, their faces etched with fatigue. Nate's mind raced, cataloging discrepancies he'd never noticed from his executive tours. Becky led him to a cramped orientation room, its air stale and heavy. 20 other new hires sat on plastic chairs, their expressions a mix of nervousness and resignation. Nate took a seat in the back, his fake glasses slipping slightly as he scanned the room. An older worker, Carlos Rivera, caught his eye, his weathered face unreadable, but his gaze lingering on Nate a moment too long. Was it suspicion? Curiosity? The ambiguity sent a shiver down Nate's spine. Derek Thompson, the orientation leader, burst in 10 minutes late, his scowl as imposing as his broad frame. "Welcome to your first day of hell," he announced, earning nervous laughs from the group. "I'm not your friend. You're here to work, and work hard. Our metrics are brutal, and if you can't keep up, there's a line of people waiting for your spot. Questions?" Nate raised his hand, playing the part of the naive new hire. The job listing mentioned regular breaks and overtime pay. Derek cut him off with a harsh laugh, his eyes glinting with disdain. "Listen, Glasses, if you're whining about breaks already, maybe you should try a tech startup. We work hard here. Want cushy? Go somewhere else." The room shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke up. Nate's face burned, a mix of embarrassment and anger. This wasn't the company he'd built. This wasn't what he stood for. The orientation was a blur of rushed instructions and veiled threats. Derek outlined impossible quotas, 1,000 units. Scan per shift, no errors, and dismissed safety protocols as guidelines. Nate's mind churned. His company's mission statement promised fair wages and safe conditions. Had it all been a lie? As the group was herded to the warehouse floor, Becky pulled Nate aside, her eyes narrowing as she checked his ID again. "This looks new," she said, her tone probing. Nate forced a shrug, his heart pounding. "Just got it replaced." She held his gaze a moment longer, then waved him on. The near miss left him shaken. His disguise was holding, but for how long? Assigned to the loading dock, Nate was thrown into the chaos with minimal guidance. The physical toll was immediate. His back ached, his hands blistered, but the emotional weight was heavier. Workers moved like automatons, their eyes dull with exhaustion. The supervisor's barked orders echoed through the cavernous space, a constant reminder of the hierarchy. During a hurried 20-minute lunch break far short of the mandated 45, Nate overheard two supervisors near the break room, their voices low but urgent. "Make sure the late-night delivery is processed quietly," one said. "No paperwork, no questions." The other nodded. "Got it. The bonus program's riding on this." Nate kept his head down, pretending to eat, but his mind raced. What was the bonus program? And what kind of delivery required no paperwork? As he returned to the dock, Carlos brushed past, his voice a whisper. "Watch your back, new guy." The warning was cryptic, its intent unclear. Was Carlos an ally or part of the problem? Nate's paranoia surged, but he had no time to dwell. The shift ended with his body screaming and his notebook filling with observations. Missing safety gear, shortened breaks, and now hints of illicit shipments. Back in his penthouse, exhausted but wired, Nate's phone buzzed with an anonymous email. "Keep your eyes down, Jack. Curiosity kills." The threat was chilling, but it only hardened his resolve. The warehouse was a far cry from the company he'd envisioned, a place where his values had been twisted into something ugly. Tomorrow he'd dig deeper, no matter the risk. Someone was watching Jack Riley, but Nathaniel Bennett was watching them too, and he wasn't backing down. The warehouse floor of Bennett Luxury Brands was a relentless assault on Nathaniel Bennett's senses. As Jack Riley, he navigated the loading dock under the harsh glare of fluorescent lights, the air thick with the drone of forklifts and the sharp tang of packing tape. His thrift store jeans chafed against his thighs, and his fake glasses slipped down his sweat-slicked nose. But the physical discomfort paled compared to the humiliation he endured. It was his second day undercover, and the reality of the warehouse, a place he'd once viewed as a cornerstone of his billion-dollar empire, was unraveling into a nightmare. The anonymous email from last night, "Keep your eyes down, Jack. Curiosity kills," lingered like a shadow, but Nate pushed it aside. He'd come for the truth, and every aching muscle, every barked order, only sharpened his resolve. Assigned to the loading dock, Nate was paired with Michael Mike Reynolds, a burly worker whose mentorship was more mockery than guidance. "Move it, college boy," Mike bellowed as Nate fumbled with a pallet jack, its rusty wheels refusing to glide smoothly. The heavy crate of luxury handbags wobbled, nearly toppling, and a chorus of laughter erupted from nearby workers. "What's this, Harvard? Can't handle the real world?" Mike's grin was cruel, his eyes glinting with the satisfaction of putting the new guy in his place. Nate's face burned, not just from the taunt, but from the unfamiliar sting of powerlessness. As CEO, he'd commanded boardrooms. Now, he was the butt of jokes, his blistered hands and aching back a testament to his fall from grace. The dock was chaos, a relentless churn of crates and shouted commands. Workers hustled to meet impossible quotas, 1,000 units scanned per shift. No errors under the watchful eyes of supervisors who prowled like predators. Nate's training had been a cursory 10-minute rundown, leaving him to learn by trial and error. Each mistake drew a reprimand, each question a scoff. "You slow us down, Riley, you're out," Mike warned, shoving a scanner into Nate's hands. The message was clear: survive or be replaced. Nate gritted his teeth, his mind cataloging every violation. The mandated 45-minute lunch break was slashed to 20 minutes, with workers scarfing down food in a cramped break room that reeked of stale coffee. Safety vests, required by company policy, were nowhere to be seen, and forklifts zipped through crowded aisles, their operators distracted by the pressure of quotas. Midway through the shift, a commotion drew Nate's attention. Jess Carter, a pregnant worker in her late 20s, swayed near a stack of crates, her face pale and slick with sweat. Before Nate could react, she collapsed, her scanner clattering to the floor. The workers around her froze, their eyes darting to the supervisors. Steve Larson, a wiry man with a permanent sneer, stormed over. "Get up, Carter, or you're out of here," he snapped, his voice cutting through the din. Jess struggled to her feet, clutching her swollen belly, her breath ragged. "I just need a break," she pleaded, her voice barely audible. Steve's laugh was cold. "Breaks are for closers. If you can't handle it, there's the door." Nate stepped forward, instinct overriding his disguise. "She needs help," he said, steadying Jess's arm. Steve's eyes narrowed, his badge glinting as he closed the distance. "You got a hearing problem, Riley? Focus on your own work, or you'll be out with her." The threat hung heavy, but Nate guided Jess to a nearby crate, ignoring the stares. In the dim light, her eyes met his, filled with a mix of gratitude and despair. "Don't worry about me," she whispered. "I need this job for my baby." The words hit Nate like a physical blow. He'd signed off on policies meant to protect workers, like Jess maternity accommodations, regular breaks. Where had those promises gone? The incident left Nate shaken, his CEO mindset warring with his undercover role. He returned to his station, his hands trembling as he scanned barcodes. Jess's collapse wasn't just a failure of supervision. It was a failure of his leadership. He trusted his management team to uphold the company's values, but the warehouse was a betrayal of everything he'd built. His thoughts were interrupted by a low conversation near the break room during the abbreviated lunch break. Steve and Derek Thompson, the orientation leader, stood by a vending machine. Their voices hushed but audible. "The bonus program's running smooth," Steve said, glancing around. "Those health insurance premiums are a goldmine." Derek smirked. "Keep the off-the-books shipments quiet, and we'll all be on yachts by next year." Nate kept his head down, pretending to chew a stale sandwich, but his mind raced. Health insurance premiums? His company allocated $2,000 per worker annually for benefits. With 200 employees, that was $400,000, enough to fund a bonus program if siphoned off. The revelation was a gut punch. Embezzlement on this scale explained the missing safety gear, the shortened brakes, the workers' exhaustion. But it was the phrase off-the-book shipments that chilled him most. The supervisor's conversation from yesterday about a late-night delivery echoed in his mind. Was this about inventory theft or something bigger? Nate's eyes flicked to the shipment log on his scanner, a digital record of incoming crates. On impulse, he cross-checked a recent entry. 100 units of luxury watches received, but the physical crate he'd just unloaded held only 95. The discrepancy was small but deliberate, a crack in the system. Before he could dig deeper, Mike loomed over him, his shadow blocking the light. "What's this, Riley? Playing detective?" His tone was playful, but his eyes were hard, a warning wrapped in a grin. Nate mumbled an excuse, pocketing the scanner, but his heart pounded. Someone was watching him, and not just the supervisors. As the shift dragged on, Nate's body screamed for rest, but his mind was alight with questions. The warehouse's toxic culture bullying, impossible quotas, neglected safety was bad enough, but the financial corruption hinted at a deeper rot. He noticed Carlos Rivera, the veteran worker who'd warned him to watch his back, lingering near a forklift. Carlos's gaze met Nate's, his expression unreadable. Was it a challenge? A plea? The ambiguity gnawed at Nate, planting a seed of doubt. Could Carlos be an ally, or was he part of the scheme, testing the new guy's loyalty? The uncertainty made every interaction feel like a minefield. The shift ended at 6 p.m., but Nate's work was far from over. In his penthouse, he collapsed onto a leather couch, his body aching but his mind racing. He opened a secure notebook, documenting the day's findings. Jess's collapse, the shortened brakes, the supervisor's talk of a bonus program, the shipment discrepancy. Each entry was a piece of a puzzle, but the picture was still incomplete. His phone buzzed, jolting him upright. Another anonymous email, its tone sharper than before. "You're asking too many questions, Jack. Stop, or you'll regret it." The words were a cold splash of reality. Someone knew he was probing, and they weren't just watching. They were threatening. Nate's fingers hovered over the phone, tempted to call his board and end the charade. But he stopped himself. The emails, the discrepancies, the supervisors. Arrogance. They all pointed to a conspiracy that went beyond a few rogue employees. The high-value storage area, where luxury goods worth millions were kept, was the likely key. If he could get assigned there, he might uncover the truth behind the off-the-books shipments. The risk was clear. His disguise was holding. But one slip could expose him. Yet, the memory of Jess's desperation, her hand clutching her belly, anchored his resolve. These were his workers, his responsibility. He'd built Bennett luxury brands on a promise of excellence, not just in products, but in people. That promise had been broken, and he wouldn't rest until he fixed it. He set his alarm for 4:30 a.m., the start of another grueling shift. Tomorrow he'd push harder, ask subtler questions, watch closer. The warehouse was a battlefield, its friendly banter and grinding routines a facade for something sinister. Jack Riley was a nobody, but Nathaniel Bennett was a man with a mission. Someone was stealing from his company, exploiting his workers, and mocking his trust. They thought they were untouchable, but Nate was learning their game, and he played to win. The warehouse of Bennett luxury brands was a labyrinth of shadows and steel, its towering shelves casting jagged patterns across the concrete floor. Nathaniel Nate Bennett, disguised as Jack Riley, moved through the high-value storage area, his heart pounding beneath the faded t-shirt that clung to his sweat-soaked skin. It was his second week undercover, and the physical toll of 14-hour shifts had left his body bruised and his hands calloused. But it was the emotional weight, the mounting evidence of corruption, the faces of exploited workers like Jess Carter, that drove him deeper into the warehouse's secrets. The anonymous threats, the latest arriving just last night. "You're asking too many questions. Jack, stop, or you'll regret it," only sharpened his focus. Someone was watching, but Nate was watching too, and he was closing in on the truth. Assigned to the high-value storage area, where luxury watches, handbags, and jewelry worth millions were processed, Nate felt the stakes rise with every step. The area was cordoned off, accessible only to select workers under the supervision of Brian Mitchell, a wiry man with a temper as volatile as the desert heat. Brian's badge gleamed under the fluorescent lights as he barked orders, his eyes darting between workers like a predator sizing up prey. "Riley, you're on inventory logging," he snapped, tossing Nate a clipboard. 50 watches in this shipment. Get it done in 30 minutes, and don't screw it up." Nate nodded, his fake glasses slipping slightly, but his mind was already racing. The high-value area was the heart of the warehouse's operations. And if the off-the-books shipments he'd overheard were happening anywhere, it was here. As he scanned the crates, Nate noticed a discrepancy that sent a chill down his spine. The shipment log listed 50 Bennett luxury watches, each valued at $20,000. But the crate held only 42. 8 watches $160,000 worth were missing. He double-checked, his fingers trembling as he counted again. The numbers didn't lie, but before he could flag the issue, Brian loomed over him, his shadow swallowing the light. "Problem, Riley?" His voice was low, laced with menace. Nate hesitated, recalling the company's safety protocol. High value. Inventory required 2 workers to log, a rule he'd personally approved. "The count's off," he said, keeping his tone neutral. "And shouldn't we have a second person for this?" Brian's face darkened, his lips curling into a sneer. "You teaching me my job, Professor Safety?" He grabbed the clipboard and hurled it across the floor, the clatter echoing in the quiet area. 25 minutes now, Riley. Clock's ticking." As Nate scrambled to retrieve the clipboard, Brian leaned in close, his breath hot against Nate's ear. "Don't go poking around, new guy. People who ask too many questions don't last long." The threat was unmistakable, but it was the gleam of satisfaction in Brian's eyes that chilled Nate most. This wasn't just negligence. It was deliberate, a piece of the puzzle he'd been chasing since his first day. The shift dragged on, Nate's body screaming under the weight of crates and the pressure of Brian's scrutiny. But his mind was alight, piecing together the clues. The missing watches, the supervisor's talk of a bonus program funded by embezzled health insurance. Premiums, the cryptic late-night delivery he'd overheard. The warehouse was a machine of exploitation, its workers ground down to meet impossible quotas while someone or something siphoned off millions. Nate's thoughts were interrupted by a familiar figure, Carlos Rivera, the veteran worker whose cryptic warning, "Watch your back," had left Nate questioning his loyalties. Carlos was restocking nearby, his movements deliberate, but his eyes flicked toward Nate, a silent message passing between them. Was it a warning? An invitation? The ambiguity gnawed at Nate, but he couldn't confront Carlos, not yet. That evening, as Nate prepared to leave, a text from an unknown number buzzed his phone. "Midnight shift, high-value area. Don't be late." It wasn't his scheduled shift, and the timing aligned with the late-night delivery chatter felt too deliberate to be coincidence. Someone was testing him, pushing him toward the heart of the conspiracy. Exhausted but resolute, Nate returned to the warehouse under a moonless sky, his Ford Focus blending into the shadows of the employee lot. The midnight shift was eerily quiet, the usual bustle replaced by a skeleton crew moving with mechanical precision. Brian met him at the entrance, his smirk unsettling. Welcome to the real work, Riley. Follow me. Brian led Nate through a maze of shelves to a section he'd never seen, despite owning the building. Hidden behind stacked shipping containers, an unmarked area opened into a dimly lit processing zone. Nate's blood ran cold as he took in the scene. A dozen workers, faces taut with focus, were opening crates of genuine Bennett luxury goods watches, handbags, jewelry, and swapping them with near-perfect counterfeits. The craftsmanship of the fakes was astonishing. Even Nate, who knew his products intimately, had to squint to spot the differences. Steve Larson, the supervisor who threatened him over Jess's collapse, oversaw the operation, his voice dripping with pride. Our Chinese partners nailed these fakes. Customers can't tell, and we shipped the real stuff to Europe and Asia. Clean profit, no trace. Nate estimated the value of the genuine goods being stolen in the single night at over $1 million. Brian handed Nate a genuine watch and its counterfeit twin. Your job's quality control, Riley. Make sure the switches are clean. No evidence of tampering. Nate nodded, his throat tight, but his mind was racing. This wasn't petty theft. It was a sophisticated international smuggling ring, operating within his own supply chain. The real products were repackaged for black market dealers, while the counterfeits went to legitimate retailers, who were none the wiser. The profit margins were astronomical, and the use of Bennett's official shipping network ensured customs never flagged the shipments. Nate's hands moved mechanically, but his eyes scanned the room, memorizing faces, processes, anything that could serve as evidence. The operation's scale was staggering, but the true blow came when two new figures entered the hidden area. Ed Sullivan, head of Asian operations, stepped from the shadows, his tailored suit a stark contrast to the warehouse's grit. Beside him was William Bill Harper, the warehouse manager Nate had trusted for a decade. Bill's presence hit Nate like a physical force, his heart lurching as memories flooded back shared holidays. Bill's speech at Nate's Entrepreneur of the Year award, their late-night talks about building a company that mattered. Now, Bill oversaw the counterfeit operation with casual ease, his voice calm as he reviewed the night's haul. Numbers look good, Ed. We've doubled output. Since the new shift, Ed nodded, but his tone was sharp. Keep it tight. Project Echo's on a deadline, and we can't afford slip-ups. Nate's blood froze. Project Echo, what was it? A code for more theft or something bigger? He kept his head down, pretending to inspect the watch, but his ears strained to catch every word. Ed's gaze swept the room, pausing on Nate for a moment. Too long. New guy? He asked, his refined accent cutting through the hum of activity. Brian smirked. Jack Riley, proving useful, discreet. Ed studied Nate, his eyes narrowing, and Nate's pulse spiked. Ed was due at the board meeting next week. If he recognized Nate, the game was over. But Ed turned away, and Nate exhaled, his cover intact for now. Seizing a moment when Brian was distracted, Nate made a risky move. He'd smuggled a tiny camera into the warehouse, concealed in his shoe. While pretending to adjust a crate, he planted it behind a shelf, angling it to capture the entire operation. The device's red light blinked once, then faded, but Nate's heart raced. If he could retrieve the footage, it would be damning evidence. As he straightened, Carlos appeared nearby, his voice a harsh whisper. You're in over your head. Kid. Their eyes locked, Carlos's expression unreadable concern or threat. Before Nate could respond, Carlos vanished into the shadows, leaving Nate's paranoia in overdrive. The shift ended at 4 a.m., and Nate stumbled to his car, his body exhausted, but his mind ablaze. Bill's betrayal was a knife to the heart, sharper than the supervisor's cruelty or Jess's suffering. The man he'd called a mentor, a friend, was orchestrating a criminal enterprise under his nose. The counterfeiting operation explained the missing inventory, the embezzled premiums, the bonus program. But Project Echo loomed larger, a shadow Nate couldn't yet grasp. He checked his phone, expecting another threat, but found a new text. "Midnight shift again tomorrow, Riley. Prove your loyalty." The message was a challenge, a trap. Someone was watching, testing him, and Nate knew he was running out of time. Back in his penthouse, Nate added to his notebook, "Counterfeit operation, $1 million plus night. Bill Harper and Ed Sullivan involved. Project Echo takeover?" The board meeting was days away, and Ed's presence there could expose him. The camera's footage was his ace, but retrieving it would be dangerous. Bill's face, calm and commanding in the hidden area, haunted him. How had he missed this? The warehouse was no longer just a workplace. It was a battlefield, and Nate was fighting for his company, his workers, and his soul. Tomorrow, he'd push deeper, even if it meant risking everything. The Phoenix warehouse of Bennett luxury brands stood silent under a moonless sky, its hulking silhouette a stark contrast to the chaos brewing within. Nathaniel "Nate" Bennett, no longer cloaked in the tattered disguise of Jack Riley, adjusted the cuffs of his tailored suit as he prepared for the most dangerous night of his life. The past 2 weeks undercover had stripped away his illusions, exposing a criminal enterprise that threatened to destroy his company. The counterfeit operation, orchestrated by his trusted mentor William Bill Harper and Edward Sullivan, head of Asian operations, was stealing millions. But Project Echo, their cryptic endgame, loomed larger. A shadow Nate was determined to unmask. Tonight, he'd set a trap to bring them down, but the cost, both personal and professional, weighed heavy on his heart. Nate's plan was meticulous, born from sleepless nights and the burning need to reclaim his company. He'd orchestrated a fake shipment of limited edition Bennett watches, each valued at $50,000, and sent an anonymous tip to Bill, claiming the watches were a black market goldmine. The bait was irresistible, designed to lure the conspirators into the open. But Nate couldn't do it alone. In the quiet of the break room, he'd revealed his identity to Jess Carter, the pregnant worker whose collapse had haunted him. Her disbelief, "You're Nathaniel Bennett, the CEO?" had given way to resolve when he explained the stakes. "They're stealing from us all, Jess," he'd said. "For your baby, for everyone, help me end this." Jess's eyes had hardened, her hand resting on her belly. "What do I need to do?" Jess's role was critical. Disable key security cameras at precise moments to create a window for federal agents, posing as corporate auditors to infiltrate the warehouse. Nate had coordinated with the FBI, providing his hidden cameras footage planted in the counterfeit operation's hidden area as evidence. The agents were stationed nearby, waiting for his signal. The fake shipment was set to arrive at 10 p.m., and Nate's heart raced as he hid in the shadows of the high-value storage area, his suit a stark contrast to the warehouse's grit. The board meeting, where Ed Sullivan could recognize him, was days away. Tonight was his only chance to dismantle the conspiracy before it consumed his company. At 10 p.m., the unmarked truck rolled into Dock 7, its engine rumbling through the quiet. Bill Harper emerged from the supervisor's office, his familiar broad shoulders and easy stride a painful reminder of their shared history holidays. Late-night strategy sessions, Bill's toast at Nate's award ceremony. Beside him was Ed Sullivan, his tailored coat out of place among the crates, and Brian Mitchell, the volatile supervisor who threatened Nate over the missing watches. Steve Larson, the sneering overseer of the counterfeit operation, completed the group. Their greed had drawn them together, just as Nate had planned. He watched from behind a stack of shipping containers, his breath shallow, as the conspirators inspected the crates of watches, their eyes gleaming with anticipation. "Numbers look perfect," Bill said, examining a crate with practiced ease. Once we swap these for the counterfeits, our Dubai buyers will clear 10 million. Ed nodded, but his tone was sharp. No mistakes. Project Echo's launch depends on this cash flow. Nate's pulse quickened. Project Echo, whatever it was, had to be the key to their endgame. He edged closer, his hidden earpiece crackling. As Jess confirmed, the cameras were down. 5 minutes, she whispered. Agents are in position. Nate's hand brushed the flash drive in his pocket, containing forged documents Jess had found in Bill's office, evidence of their plan to frame Nate for corruption and seize control of the company. The conspirators' voices grew louder, their arrogance unguarded. "Then it's clueless," Steve sneered, tossing a fake watch to Brian. "His worker safety nonsense just makes it easier to siphon funds." The Bill chuckled, the sound a knife to Nate's heart. "He trusts too much. That's why we picked this company." The betrayal, so casually spoken, fueled Nate's resolve. He stepped from the shadows, his suit catching the dim light, and cleared his throat. "Good evening, gentlemen. I believe those watches belong to my company." The silence was deafening, the conspirators' faces frozen in shock. Ed recovered first, his refined facade cracking. "Who the hell?" His eyes narrowed, recognition dawning. "Bennett?" Bill's jaw dropped, his confidence evaporating. "Nate? How?" Nate gave a mock bow, his voice steady despite the storm in his chest. "Jack Riley, at your service. Though you might know me better as the CEO you've been stealing from." Brian lunged forward, his fist raised, but Carlos Rivera, who'd been working nearby, stepped between them, his weathered face set with determination. "Back off, Mitchell," Carlos growled, his presence a shock. Nate's heart leapt. Carlos, the ambiguous veteran, was an ally. Ed's hand moved to his coat, pulling a sleek pistol, its barrel glinting. "You think you've won, Bennett?" he snarled. "One call, and our documents hit the board proof of your corruption. Project Echo will bury you." Nate held up the flash drive, his voice calm. "You mean these documents?" Jess found them in Bill's office. Amazing what a pregnant woman can access when you underestimate her. Jess, positioned behind a crate, acted on cue, swinging a heavy inventory clipboard at Ed's hand. The gun clattered to the floor, and Jess kicked it away, her eyes blazing with defiance. "That's for my baby," she spat. A commotion erupted at the main entrance. Jess's accidental security breach, perfectly timed to draw Bill's attention. As he rushed to investigate, federal agents swarmed the warehouse, their badges flashing under the lights. "FBI, hands up." The counterfeit workers froze, crates half open, while Brian made a desperate dash for the exit, only to be tackled by security. Steve dropped to his knees, his bravado gone. Ed, his gun lost, raised his hands, his face a mask of fury. Nate's eyes locked on Bill, who returned from the entrance, his expression crumbling as agents cuffed him. "Nate, please," Bill pleaded, his voice raw. "I was gathering evidence, trying to protect you." Nate cut him off, his tone sharp with betrayal. "You taught me to observe, Bill, to always watch. I just never thought I'd use those lessons against you." The words carried the weight of their shared past 10 years of trust, now ash. Bill's head bowed, his confidence shattered as an agent led him away. Nate's chest ached, but there was no time for grief. The warehouse was a crime scene, its hidden area exposed, crates of counterfeits and genuine goods strewn across the floor. The agents secured the scene, cataloging evidence, while Nate retrieved his hidden camera, its footage intact despite a tense moment when a worker nearly knocked it loose during the chaos dot as the conspirators were escorted out. Nate gathered the stunned midnight crew in the main warehouse area. He removed his fake glasses, their scratched lenses no longer needed, and faced them as Nathaniel Bennett, CEO. "I owe you an apology," he began, his voice carrying over the hum of forklifts in the distance. I came here as Jack Riley to find the truth, but I was too late to see your suffering. That changes tonight." The workers' faces were a mix of shock and recognition, some ashamed of mocking Jack, others, like Jess, standing tall. Carlos approached, his voice low. "I've been tracking their discrepancies for months. Couldn't blow my cover till you showed up." Nate clasped his shoulder, gratitude overwhelming the pain of Bill's betrayal. The victory was bittersweet. Project Echo, a plan to frame Nate and seize the company, was thwarted, but the personal cost was steep. Bill's face, pleading as he was cuffed, lingered in Nate's mind. The warehouse, once a symbol of his success, was now a battleground, its scars a testament to his failure to protect his workers. But as Jess stood beside him, her resolve unbroken, and Carlos's quiet strength anchored the crew, Nate saw a path forward. He'd exposed the rot, but the real work, rebuilding trust, restoring dignity, was just beginning. The agent's radios crackled, signaling the end of the longest night in Bennett Luxury Brand's history. Nate looked at the workers, their faces illuminated by the dawn creeping through the loading bay doors. He'd won the battle, but the war for his company's soul lay ahead. For the first time in weeks, he felt not like Jack Riley, nor even Nathaniel Bennett, but a man with a purpose to make things right, no matter the cost. The loading bay doors of Bennett Luxury Brand's Phoenix warehouse stood open, letting the dawn's first light spill across the concrete floor, now littered with evidence bags and FBI tape. Nathaniel, Nate Bennett, stood in the center of the chaos, his tailored suit rumpled from the night's confrontation, his fake glasses discarded in a drawer. The sting of William Bill Harper's betrayal, his mentor and friend of 10 years, now in handcuffs for orchestrating a counterfeit. Empire burned deeper than the arrests of Edward Ed Sullivan, Brian Mitchell, and Steve Larson. Project Echo, their plan to frame Nate and seize the company, was dead, but the warehouse felt like a battlefield, its scars a testament to Nate's failure to protect his workers. Yet, as Jess Carter and Carlos Rivera stood nearby, their faces weary but resolute, Nate saw a glimmer of hope. The fight to save his company wasn't over. It was shifting to a new front, rebuilding trust and restoring dignity. By morning, the arrests had ignited a firestorm. Local news vans clustered outside, their cameras capturing the FBI's exodus with crates of counterfeit goods. Inside, the day shift arrived to a transformed workplace, their whispers filling the air as they recognized Jack Riley as Nathaniel Bennett, their billionaire CEO. Some averted their eyes, ashamed of mocking the quiet newcomer. Others, like Jess, met his gaze with quiet pride. Nate felt their stares, a mix of awe and uncertainty, as he walked the aisles. The warehouse's hum forklifts, scanners, shouted orders was subdued, replaced by a tension that mirrored his own. He'd exposed the corruption, but the cost was a fractured community, and the path to healing felt daunting. The first challenge came before noon, when a post on Phoenix's community social media group went viral. Bennett Luxury Brands fires loyal managers to cover CEO's greed. Boycott this corrupt company. The post, anonymous but dripping with Bill's defiant tone, racked up hundreds of likes, accusing Nate of exploiting workers while profiting from their labor. Comments piled up, some from customers who trusted the brand, others from workers loyal to Bill, unaware of his crimes. Nate's stomach churned as he read the thread in his office, each accusation a reminder of his blindness to the warehouse's rot. He'd expected backlash, but not this public crucifixion, orchestrated by the man who'd once called him family. Silence wasn't an option. By evening, Nate organized a town hall in the warehouse parking lot, setting up folding chairs under a canopy as the desert sun dipped low. Over 150 workers, customers, and locals attended, their faces a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Nate stood at a makeshift podium, his voice steady despite the knot in his chest. Bennett Luxury Brands was built to be more than a business, he began, meeting their eyes. It was meant to be a community, a place where workers and customers were valued. I failed you, not by choice, but by ignorance. I trusted the wrong people, and you paid the price. He gestured to the warehouse. Some of you benefited from stolen goods, not knowing their cost. I don't blame you. But those actions nearly destroyed this company and the jobs it supports. I'm here to make it right. New systems, fair wages, and a promise to listen. The crowd was quiet. Then a familiar voice broke the silence. Amanda, Mandy Brooks, the worker denied compensation for her back injury, stood, her posture stronger than Nate remembered. Mr. Bennett went undercover, lived our struggles. She said, he didn't have to, but he did. That's more than any boss I've known. Her words sparked murmurs of agreement, and a few workers shared stories. Nate helping Jess during her collapse, his quiet diligence as Jack. Not everyone was swayed. Some loyal to Bill scowled, but the tide shifted. Nate ended the town hall with a pledge. This is your company too. Help me rebuild it. Reforms began immediately. Nate installed state-of-the-art safety equipment barriers for high-stack areas, mandatory vests, and upgraded ventilation. Breaks were restored to 45 minutes with overtime pay enforced. He hired a cybersecurity firm to secure the inventory system, closing the loopholes Bill had exploited. Jess, her resolve unshaken, was promoted to head of worker relations, designing policies for maternity leave and health support. Mandy led a new safety committee, her experience shaping protocols that cut workplace injuries by 80% within weeks. Carlos, who'd risked his cover to track discrepancies, trained ethical supervisors. His steady presence, a cornerstone of the new culture. The changes weren't without resistance. A protest by Bill's loyalists, former workers, and misguided. Locals marched outside the warehouse, their signs decrying Nate's corporate purge. The sight tested his resolve, but Mandy rallied workers to counter with testimonials of the new conditions, their voices drowning out the dissent. Customers returned, drawn by the company's transparency. A local boutique owner praised the restored integrity of Bennett's products. Sales dipped initially, as black market buyers vanished, but loyal clients and new contracts stabilized the numbers, proving that honesty could compete with greed. Nate's personal toll was harder to mend. Alone in his office, he stared at the framed first sale, a watch sold from his original boutique, its gleam a reminder of his dream to build a company that mattered. Bill's betrayal had shattered that dream, leaving a loneliness that success couldn't fill. He thought of Jess's courage, Carlos's quiet loyalty, Mandy's resilience. They were the company's heart, and he'd nearly lost them to his own blindness. One afternoon, Mike Reynolds, the worker who'd mocked Nate's pallet jack struggles, approached him in the break room. I was cruel to you, Mike said, his voice low. Thought it made me tough. I was wrong. Nate met his gaze. We all get it wrong sometimes. What matters is what you do next. Mike's nod, tentative but earnest, was a small victory, a step toward redemption. A legal notice arrived, detailing Ed's upcoming trial, and the broader fallout. Other warehouses were under scrutiny, hinting at a wider network. Nate filed it away, his focus on the present. The warehouse was transforming, its culture shifting from fear to accountability. One evening, as Nate locked up, he saw Jess reviewing a new policy, her hand resting on her belly. This place is better because of you, he said. She smiled. Because of us, Mr. Bennett. The words anchored him, a reminder that rebuilding wasn't solitary. The warehouse's pulse was steady now, its aisles alive with purpose. Nate walked the floor, noting small changes, a worker's unhurried lunch, a safety vest worn without prompting. The scars of betrayal lingered, but they were healing, overlaid by a commitment to integrity. Bennett Luxury Brands was his again. Not just in name, but in spirit, a place where workers weren't numbers, but partners. The journey was far from over, but as Nate looked at the horizon, the desert sky ablaze with sunset, he felt ready. Trust was fragile, but with vigilance and care, it could be rebuilt one honest day at a time. 1 year after the night that shook Bennett Luxury Brands to its core, Nathaniel "Nate" Bennett stood in the heart of the Phoenix warehouse, the hum of activity a testament to its rebirth. The cavernous space, once a battleground of betrayal, now buzzed with purpose. Forklifts glided smoothly between safety barriers. Workers in bright vests moved with unhurried confidence, and the break room echoed with laughter over shared meals. The scars of William Bill Harper's counterfeit empire and Project Echo's takeover plot lingered, but they were overlaid with a new culture, one of integrity, respect, and shared purpose. Nate, his sleeves rolled up from a monthly shift, on the loading dock, felt the warehouse's pulse, steady and strong, a far cry from the toxic chaos he'd uncovered as Jack Riley. The transformation was profound. Jess Carter, now head of worker relations, oversaw policies that prioritized health and family. Her newborn daughter, a quiet inspiration in the office. Amanda "Mandy" Brooks led the safety committee, her back injury a distant memory thanks to company-funded therapy. Her protocols had slashed workplace injuries to near zero. Carlos Rivera, the veteran whose cryptic warnings had saved Nate's mission, trained a new generation of supervisors, his steady hand shaping a culture of accountability. The warehouse was no longer a sweatshop, but a model of ethical business. Its efficiency up 40% as morale soared. Nate's reforms, profit sharing, stock options, transparent audits had turned workers into partners. Their faces alight with pride. Nate walked the aisles, his eyes catching a new sign above the entrance. Bennett Luxury Brands, built on integrity. The words were a promise, etched in steel, reflecting the lessons of a year marked by loss and renewal. Bill's betrayal had been the hardest blow, his decade of mentorship revealed as a facade for greed. A letter from Bill had arrived last week, penned from a prison cell. "I lost myself, Nate. I'm sorry." The words stirred regret but no forgiveness. Some wounds were too deep to heal. Nate had tucked the letter away, choosing to focus on the future, a future where trust was earned, not assumed. That afternoon, the workers gathered in the loading bay for a surprise ceremony, their chatter filling the air with warmth. Jess stepped forward, holding a polished pallet jack, its rusty frame transformed into a gleaming trophy. A plaque read, "To Nathaniel Bennett, who walked in our shoes and changed our path." "You didn't just save the company," Jess said, her voice clear. "You gave us back our dignity." The crowd erupted in applause, and Nate, his throat tight, accepted the gift, his fingers tracing the plaque. He thought of his first day as Jack Riley, struggling with that same pallet jack under Mike Reynolds' mockery. Now, Mike stood among the workers, his head high, his cruelty replaced by a quiet commitment to lead better. Nate addressed the gathering, his voice steady but thick with emotion. "A year ago, I came here to save my company, but you saved me. You showed me what strength looks like, not in boardrooms or bank accounts, but in your resilience, your honesty, your courage." He looked at Jess, Mandy, Carlos, and the others, their faces a mosaic of the company's heart. This isn't the end of our story. It's a new beginning, one where we prove that success doesn't demand sacrifice, it demands humanity. As he spoke, a new worker approached, her cart filled with essentials for her family's move to Phoenix. "This place treats people right," she said, smiling. "That's rare." Her words echoed the hope Nate felt, a reminder that the warehouse's legacy was spreading. Yet, a shadow lingered, a competitor's recent smear campaign, hinting at legal challenges to come. Nate welcomed the fight, his trust now tempered by vigilance, his purpose clear, to protect what he'd rebuilt, no matter the cost. This story of Bennett luxury brands is a powerful testament to the human spirit, weaving a tapestry of trust, betrayal, and redemption. Nate Bennett's journey from a detached CEO to a leader who lived his workers' struggles underscores the humanism at the story's core. The workers, Jess's courage, Carlos's quiet loyalty, Mandy's resilience are not mere cogs, but the heart of the narrative, their dignity the true treasure. Bill's betrayal, while painful, reveals the complexity of human motives, a reminder that even those we trust can falter. The story teaches profound lessons. Trust is a currency that demands care, easily broken but possible to rebuild with accountability. Nate's mistake was blind faith, but his redemption lay in listening, acting, and empowering others. For readers, the message is clear. Leadership requires empathy, and true success honors the humanity of all involved. The warehouse's transformation shows that change, though hard-won, can create a legacy of fairness and respect, inspiring us to build communities where every voice matters. If Nate's journey and the warehouse's rebirth moved you, dive deeper with legacy stories. Our channel brings you tales of resilience, courage, and human connection, each one a reminder of what we can achieve together. Subscribe today to join our community and never miss a story that challenges, uplifts, and inspires. Click the button and let's explore the legacies that shape our world.